Good morning. Welcome back to Tropical Chatter, your go-to source for online information regarding the 2017 hurricane season. It is September 7th, about 9:30 in the morning. We have Major Hurricane Irma bearing down on the Turks and Caicos in southern Bahamas. 8 a.m. advisory from the National Hurricane Center has Hurricane Irma with 180-mile-an-hour sustained winds moving west-northwest at 17 miles an hour. 17 miles an hour is a pretty good clip for a hurricane. It's going to get through these islands rather quickly, but leave a trail of utter destruction. At this time, we have hurricane warnings in effect for Dominican Republic and Haiti. Hurricane watches and tropical storm warnings up for the eastern tip of Cuba. And for Cuba as a whole, we have tropical storm warnings into effect. Turks and Caicos, southern Bahamas, and now the northern Bahamas, all in hurricane warnings. Meaning hurricane conditions are imminent, and you should already have completed your prep. If you're not completed, do it now before the rain starts, before the winds start howling, and before the core gets over your house. You're not going to want to be unprepared for this one. We're going to look at timing here. Late tonight, tomorrow morning, Turks and Caicos, southern Bahamas, absolutely getting just ravaged. 140, 160, 180 mile an hour gusts is possible as the core moves through. If the core does not move over your location, you will not get those high gusts. You could get gusts into around the 100 range. But if the core comes over your location, expect pictures like what came out of Barbuda. Just total devastation. Just flattened everything. The storm is not weakening much. It's not weakening at all, in my opinion, right now. It's just normal fluctuations for intense hurricanes. They always go through this kind of stuff. It's still a strong Category 5 hurricane that will move through the Bahamas in the South Florida up into the eastern seaboard towards the southeast coast. So tonight, early tomorrow is the South Bahamas, southern Bahamas. Midday tomorrow, you're in the central Bahamas. And as the day goes on, it just goes up north to the northern Bahamas. By Sunday morning, we're talking about 2 a.m., Major Hurricane Irma is sitting right off the southeast Florida coast, 50 or 100 miles off the coast, and it's just lurking with ill intentions. Whether the track is right overland, a little bit west of the cone, whether it skirts the east coast of Florida, or whether this northern jog or northern turn occurs a little bit early and only scrapes the coast. That would be the best case scenario, but as time goes on, that's seeming less and less likely. If it did just skirt the east coast and head up towards the Carolinas, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Pompano, all those areas would still get gusts over 100 miles an hour. You would miss out on the northeast side, the core of this hurricane, but you're still going to get gusts well over 100 miles an hour, torrential rain, storm surge, and all that good stuff. So if it misses just to the right, do not think you're off the hook, because you won't be off the hook. It's going to be bad either way. Cuba is almost totally off the out of the game here. That would be our only hope for weakening this system, and it looks like it's not happening. For days I've been saying it won't happen. There's always been the chance. This is its closest approach around 2 a.m. Saturday. I don't even know if that's going to be the case. Once it gets up into the Bahamas, it's going to have to track almost due west for a time being, or west-northwest. And I don't know if that's going to be the case. I think, honestly, it's going to be a more of a northwest jog. It's going to come up through this area here. I think it's going to be a little bit north of these dots of the National Hurricane Center official forecast. But we're talking about like 20 miles, 50 miles. No big deal. And come up something like that. So if you're in these areas, it's in the cone. Keys, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Pompano, West Palm Beach, Cape Canaveral, all the way up to, the northern coast of Florida. Prep. You got to prep now. Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. Sorry about that. Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Outer Banks, prep now. This could easily come off the coast and jog more, east-northeast or northeast, and take it right into the Outer Banks. It could come right into, Wilmington, North Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina, Savannah, Georgia. All these options are on the table. nothing could be ruled out at this point. We're talking about just little jogs, a little jog right here, and instead of it being right here, it takes you to the North Carolina-South Carolina border. 50 miles, west of that takes you towards, southern South Carolina. Not much change in the turn north will impact where it hits the southeast coast. So be prepared now. Don't wait for it to, get off Cape Canaveral, Florida, and say, "Oh crap, it's coming for me." Just do your stuff now, and then if it comes, it comes. If not, be thankful. So let's get off the track for a second here. Hurricane hunters are in the system right now. They're finding 921 millibars each pass, 2 passes in a row. Does look like they're coming back for a third one. Winds in the eye wall have been found to be around 175 miles an hour. Category 5, intense Category 5, 20 miles an hour over Category 5 threshold. It is an intense storm. And the only thing that's inhibiting it right now, or may inhibit it today, is its proximity to Hispaniola, Dominican Republic, and Haiti. We're going to touch on that in a second when we get to the satellite image. That is the only thing standing in its way today that could possibly give it a hard time. It may wobble north a couple frames and just give itself enough space where it won't even be affected by Hispaniola. So we will see how that plays out over the next couple hours. If it gets close enough, if it wobbles due west, the mountains of Hispaniola could disrupt the core of the system and really knock it down to some strength. However, I do not see that happen. I don't think it's going to get close enough. The core of this system is wound so tight and is so established. I just do not see it being affected by the mountains, even with this close of approach. So here's the 48 discussion and 48-hour outlook from the National Hurricane Center. This is as of 8 a.m. Hurricane force winds are still extending only 50 miles away. It's a very tight, powerful core. But tropical storm force winds do extend out 185 miles. So if you're 185 miles away from the center of the storm, you're still getting tropical storm force conditions. Here's the important part. Turks and Caicos, 15 to 20 foot storm surge. 15 to 20 foot storm surge. Southeastern and central Bahamas, 15 to 20 feet. Northwestern Bahamas, 4 to 7 feet. This is substantial storm surge. It's life-threatening stuff. I hear the airport on one of the islands, I forget what island in the Bahamas, is only 20 feet above sea level. Well, 20-foot storm surge, the entire island is underwater. You have nowhere to go. You can't outrun the water. So keep that in mind. Get to the highest possible level in your house that's secure. It's a life-threatening situation here. So here's a satellite image of Hurricane Irma this morning. It is a thing of beauty. It's a little bit out of whack right now. It's jumping around, as you can see. So I'm going to skip over this one. And let's go to the infrared. And you can see the western side of the storm is looking a little ragged right now. But I do believe that'll fill in. You can see on this side here. I don't know why it's jumping around. But, the cold cloud tops, the highest cloud tops on the western side are getting eroded, eaten away a little bit. But that should, redevelop rather shortly here. I don't think it's just a... So I do think that's temporary. This will build back with time. As the system gets close to Hispaniola, which it is now, it possibly will wrap in drier. The mountains of Hispaniola, Dominican Republic, and Haiti may disrupt the system. But you can see on that last frame, the eye is perfectly round. There's no signs of it right now. And even if I were to slow it down a little bit, I won't do it. But just watch it right here. Watch it. Look at that last frame. Jog north a little bit. These systems have a knack for avoiding land and avoiding things that'll kill it. So it may just jog a little bit north. It may pass north of this next forecast point here. Here's the next National Hurricane Center forecast point. I do think it'll probably come in this area here, just a tad north of it. But that much difference could be a difference between disrupting the core and no disruption at all. So if you're in these islands here, I do not know the names of them. I should have pulled up the map, but I don't have them up. We're running late for work this morning. If you're in these islands right here, expect the northern eye wall to pass directly overhead. Complete devastation. 160, 80, 200 mile an hour gusts are quite possible. It sounds crazy, but it's not crazy with this storm. So these islands here, even if you keep this going, all these islands here, just expect the northern eye wall, expect the worst of this storm to pass overhead. So if you're in any of these, you need to batten down the hatches to the fullest extent now. Don't wait, do it now. As for Cuba, this area of Cuba here, you guys are going to get away rather scot-free. It's a big enough distance here where you guys are not going to get affected by the core. It'll be similar to San Juan, maybe 60, 80 mile an hour winds, but no hurricane, Cat 2 or 3 winds. It's not going to happen. Close or farther up the coast, yes, Cuba will get into a little bit more rougher weather, but it's Cuba, so. So let's skip over to the next frame I got here. It's the European model from last night. I didn't mean to make a video last night, but it was a long day and I ended up falling asleep. So here we are. Here we are right now, and right about now we're passing over Dominican Republic. The storm system is actually a little bit farther east than this because we're not 24 hours out yet from when this model was put out. Real quick, I'll touch on Katia out here in the Gulf of Mexico, already a hurricane, gonna just crash right into Mexico here. And Jose has to be watched as it may skirt the northern Leeward Islands and do it again. The Euro is rather interesting. You're gonna see how that plays out at the end of this run. I would not worry about that yet. Don't worry about it at all yet, actually. So let's put this into motion again, and you can see the Euro track from last night, the most recent Euro run. Brings it rather close to Cuba still, but not as close as previous runs. No disruption at all in this run here. Parks it directly south of the southernmost tip of Florida, and we have a landfall in Miami-Dade County. Again, this is back-to-back runs for the Euro with a Miami-Dade landfall right up the coast. The eye of the hurricane passes over Cape Canaveral, which would just be devastating for the entire east coast of Florida. You're in the northern eye wall, possibly the eastern eye wall at times funneling around. But the western eye wall is just battering the inland sections. Heavy rain, substantial 100 mile an hour wind gusts. But the east coast is just get devastated here. This whole time, winds off the water is just going to funnel in this surge the entire time. As it comes up, as you can see, the wind already switched at this point for Miami-Dade and southern Florida. But if I were to back it up a frame or two, which I will, you can see just the fetch off the ocean will just bring in tremendous amounts of water for the entire east coast of Florida. So let's put this back in motion here, and it slams it right into Georgia. It's a possibility. I don't think Georgia ends up getting a landfall. They just don't get many landfalls in this area here. If I had to bet, it would be South Carolina or North Carolina. But this is the Euro for now. Here's Katia out here to the east. I will just put that into motion a couple more times. It gets trapped, no steering currents, and by the time it does want to move, high pressure builds back over and starts sending it west towards the Florida Straits. Don't worry about that right now. It's nothing to be concerned about, but it is an interesting run, so I threw it in there. We're going to switch over to the GFS now and see what that had to show last night. Like I said, I am running a little late for work, so not going to back it up all the way. 24 hours out, we're over the eastern tip of Cuba, just destroying the Bahamas. 931 millibars is likely a little bit too high. Should be in the 920 still. 48 hours out, just north of central Cuba. I believe that's Andros Island, possibly just getting the absolute worst of the storm right here. And it's the 6Z GFS. The 0Z GFS is very similar to this, so there's no point in including both of them. But it's just a near miss off the east coast of Florida. Miami, Fort Lauderdale, all these areas are still getting over 120 to 130 mile an hour gusts in this run. And just storm surge just getting funneled up the coast the entire time. We'll put it in motion here 90 hours out. We're about a little bit east of Sebastian Inlet, Cape Canaveral, Cocoa Beach area. Storm is very strong, 903 millibars, just tanking. And all this water is just getting funneled up to the coast. Even if you don't get hurricane force winds in this area, you're going to get a huge storm surge. wave run up will be massive. I'm talking 15, 20, 25 footers crashing ashore probably, especially if it's a little bit closer to the coast. So we'll see about that. But GFS, if I put it into motion a couple more frames here, brings it up. This is more of a realistic outcome in my opinion. Into the South Carolina coast is a 908 millibar, major hurricane. As it gets to this point out here, there will be a little bit more shear, affecting the storm, and some dry air getting wrapped around also. So it may not hold its winds at 140, 150 miles an hour, but I could easily see 115, 120, 125 major hurricane status crashing ashore into the Carolinas, northern Georgia, up to the Outer Banks. So, it's a serious situation unfolding for the entire southeast coast of the United States. H-Mon, I don't got time to go through the whole run, but here's its closest approach as of 6Z run. It's pretty much a landfall in Miami. Miami is right about here, give or take a little bit, and we have, 143 knot, 885 millibar storm parked 5 miles away. Serious situation. Storm surge would be just huge. We're talking 15, 20 feet, more than likely in some of these bays. Biscayne Bay, Key Biscayne, all these little, it's just going to be huge. So take this seriously. And one last model, H-Warp. You can see where that puts, where the H-Warp puts it. Very similar to the GFS, about 20 or 30 miles off the coast. This would still bring, 80 to 100 or 110 mile an hour gusts to the immediate shoreline. But put this into motion here, and north of West Palm Beach, you get spared anything over hurricane force winds. And this does bring it up into the South Carolina coast also. So pretty much right now, we're going to go back to the track. And right now, the general consensus is from the southernmost tip of Florida to about 30 to 40 miles off the coast. Comes in, southernmost tip of Florida, you're talking about racing up through Cape Canaveral into the Georgia-South Carolina border, something like that. And if it comes up offshore, let me get rid of that. You're talking about a track that leads into the South Carolina-North Carolina border, more than likely. It's going to be a major hurricane this entire time. So be prepared. The storm is huge. It doesn't matter where the eye goes. All of Cape Canaveral South in this area here will receive tropical storm force conditions. And the same goes for about 200, 230 mile radius for wherever makes landfall in this area here. So today is the day to prepare. Do not wait any longer. You're finally in the 3-day cone, Florida. Less than 3 days to the impacts. And they're going to be severe impacts. So get ready. I'll have another update later today. Thank you, and God bless.